The more expensive camera you buy, the better filmmaker you are. That sentence couldn't be further from the truth. A camera and the lenses are often some of the most expensive tools we deal with in our daily work. It's easy to draw in specs, brands, and models. And then someone pops up in the background saying that the iPhone 17 Pro is so good you don't even need a camera anymore. So today let's talk about when it's actually the right time to upgrade your gear, what to consider when choosing, and whether the camera is really what's holding you back. My goal for this video is to give you a bit more confidence about what the reality of filmmaker looks like in the non-fiction world, documentaries or short commercial projects, based on my own experience. We are not going to talk about specs or which brand has worse skin tones than the other. Of course, this is an individual thing, everyone's situation is different. So I will walk you through my journey looked like over the past few years, and how at each stage I needed something little different so you can hopefully find yourself in one of the stages. The first thing is that it's easy to fall in the trap of better body, better film. But here's what I see now. Owning a professional camera has never limited me on any project. That's because production houses, in most of my cases, have their own equipment matched to the kinds of projects they do. So the range of cameras I work with is really wide. And there is a lot to learn from that. The bigger and the more professional the projects I get, the more obvious it becomes that you don't keep a Arri or a Red or a Sony Burano sitting in your closet, because you would have to own all of them to match every project's needs. In short, and a bit harshly, use whatever camera they gave you. You are making specific, repetitive types of films. At some point it might actually make sense to buy one and just rent it out with yourself. But we will get to that in a second. The brand that's probably the most common in my line of work is Sony. So over the 5 or 6 years, I've mostly worked on a a7 IV, a7S III, then FX30, FX3, FX6, and a few times on the FX9. Outside of that system, I used Blackmagics like Pocket or Ursa, or sometimes it's Panasonic. So my point is, your job as DP is about skill, not about gear. Just think about how much money I would need to own all of those cameras. Of course, owning your own camera can be really helpful, but spending money on one when you don't have a strong portfolio, relationships in the industry, or clarity about what kind of projects you will be doing, it's not a great idea. If you are just starting to earn money from filmmaking, it's much better investment to put that budget into things that have a bigger visual impact, like lighting. Extra light is absolutely worth having. A big, strong key light, small pocket lights, or other practicals can sometimes do much more for your image than putting all your money into camera. So if you're planning to buy a camera and you've set aside a budget, save a good portion of it for a lighting or accessories. There are tons of them, as you know, and they are essential to give yourself as much creative freedom as possible. I'm talking about a solid monitor, proper camera rigging, magic arms, foul logs, memory cards, or an entire bag of cables and adapters. If it's a small project where the crew is just a producer, director and cinematographer and maybe a few helping hands, time plays a crucial role, and having a small clamp to hold the curtain can be a blessing. No matter what camera I'm working with, I can always use those tools. These are things you can stop noticing after a while, but multi-tool or a spare HDMI cable can save a lot of necessary stress. Now, that might sound like you never actually need to own a camera, and honestly, it's kind of a true, especially in the beginning. Over time, though, you start facing problems we would all love to have. Too much work. In the last 2 years, I've had a few months where I was shooting basically every single day. Some projects were big, some were small, but at the end, the result was the same. Booking, transport, renting cameras at the specific hours become a real problem and a very tiring situation. I know it sounds a bit paradoxical, but what to me sounds even more paradoxical today is the slow path of going through amateur cameras. Saving, buying, selling. Instead of just using rental houses from the beginning and working on the base level camera, So how do you make a smooth transition to the higher level, like from A7 III to FX3 or FX6, like in my case? You get to the point where you are not wondering whether you will have a shoot in 2 weeks. You already have a relatively stable situation in this industry. In my case, it looked like this. Just before a month, packed with a few big projects and several smaller ones, I decide, okay, this is the month I will invest in a FX3 because there is no reason to rent it anymore. I will earn enough money in a few weeks to cover this price. I still use it to this day, although not always. All the principles from the beginning of this video still apply to me. For bigger, higher budget projects, the cameras are always rented and tailored to the specific film's needs. For smaller ones, where the camera choice isn't that crucial, I take the FX3, sometimes even as a become to something like FX6. And with a high degree of certainty, I can say that if we finally get a successor to FX6, my FX3 will go up for sale. And then when I will need a small, lightweight camera, I will just rent it. That approach works very well for me. And honestly, I regret ever owning cameras like A7 III. They only taught me what red noise looks like, and what overheating icons feel like during the interview in A7 IV, or the pain of having your recording stop after 30 minutes. And yes, that actually happens to me during one-of-a-kind shoot at the theater premiere. In short, the right time to change your camera is when you are tired of driving to rental houses and dealing with logistics. You know the camera will pay itself off quickly because you already have all the supporting gear around and enough work. I wish we have a simple rule, like if someone asks you for the same camera 5 times, then it's time to buy instead of renting. But the truth is, everyone's situation is different, financially and professionally, so the universal rule is this. Don't fall into the trap of thinking your gear is the value you bring on set. It's just very expensive equipment that can be a good investment, but what always really mattered, and always will, it's what you use it for and how you use it.